Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Simonian from the Neocon team, and I want to thank you for joining us for our May Neocon programming series. This afternoon's presentation with Tom Polucci and Mike Goetz of HOK will be about the impact of media on design. I want to cover just a few items before we get started. Today's session qualifies for accreditation, and certificates will be emailed within 3 business days to everyone who stays on for the full session. More details on accreditation can be found on our Neocon website under programming. Also, the final 15 minutes of the session will be Q&A with Tom and Mike. So if you have questions, please place them under the Q&A box, not the chat box, the Q&A box. So let's get started with a little background on our presenters. Tom Polucci is Firmwide Director of Interiors at HOK, and he oversees conceptual design, programming, space planning, finish, furniture selection, design, and detailed development, site inspections, and construction administration for the firm's New York interior design projects. He has over 20 years of special expertise in managing the design, documentation, and implementation processes for corporate office projects with challenging schedule and budget requirements. He has served as the project designer on numerous projects in which he has directed a full service design team. Mike Goetz is a senior project designer at HOK in Chicago, where he leads the design team in the creation and development of a project's overall design concept. With over 12 years of experience in the workplace, hospitality, and education market sectors, Mike approaches design with ingenuity, client-driven solutions, and interdisciplinary thinking. His experience includes the coordination of the design process from gathering and analyzing data for workplace standards to detailed design development and project completion. Mike excels in interpreting and translating data while promoting unique and efficient environments with a focus from the big picture down to every little detail. And now I'll pass the screen over to Tom and Mike.
Okay, now I have to play technical wizard. Let's try this. Mike, did I do it?
Not yet.
Is it not
Try
sharing?
once.
Oh, knew this was going to be an issue. Okay. Wait, let me go back. Hold on, everyone. Okay. Let's back up. Now, we got it,
Yep.
Mike?
We are good to go.
We're good to go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our presentation. I'm Tom Polucci. Here's my partner and friend, Mike Goetz, and we're going to take you on a little journey we call Designing Under the Influence. So websites like Apartment Therapy and House, social media channels like Instagram and Pinterest, and television networks like HGTV have given the world a 24/7 access to design ideas and inspiration. This growing interest in design is a welcome natural development. People have an innate attraction to beauty, and a wider participation in the design process has only enriched the results. The challenge is that while everyone may have their own ideas and opinions about design, and thanks to the plethora of free design apps and inexpensive software, the tools to practice it, not everyone's a designer. Great design does not emerge from a well-curated Pinterest board or hours of binge watching TV. Instead, it's the product of education and experience, inspiration and rigor. Designers have always worked to solve problems and improve the human experience. That will never change. What is changing, even more so as we reimagine the aspects of the built environment in response to COVID, is our culture's heightened awareness of design. So what does all this mean? I am fortunate enough as the firm-wide leader of interiors to work with great people like Mike and other designers, strategists, and experienced designers across HOK. And many of you on the call are probably familiar with our partner, Kay Sargent. Kay and I lead something we call HOK Forward, which is our thought leadership magazine. And in 2020, right around COVID's start, we had published our latest issue, which we called Design in the Digital Age. And that is something that we were really passionate about around these 6 different subjects: aesthetics, influencers, stylization, globalization, experience, and personalization. And so this was kind of the parameters we had set for ourselves. And we invited a group of talented designers at HOK, strategists and experienced designers, to join us in kind of crafting some essays and thought leadership around each one of these subjects. And so today, Mike and I are going to switch off. We're going to take you through these different ideas and kind of share with you what our experience has been when we really just started to think about this. And Mike, I think I missed the QR code right on the first page.
Yeah.
So we've got a QR code, right, Mike? And that takes you to the microsite?
Yep. If you go back a slide, it is, if you go ahead and take your phone, I'm sure you all know how to use this by now, but that will take you to the full website where you can get a lot more information than what we'll be giving you today. I encourage to checking it out. Is actually a pretty interesting read. So yeah, check it out.
Great. Thanks, Mike. So we're going to get started. And Mike,
right.
I think it's all you.
Yeah, let's go. First section we want to talk about is aesthetics. Sometimes when I hear people discussing design, I catch myself thinking, is that really all there is? Are we just out here chasing trends? Oh, Tom, too quick. If I could drive one point home from this entire presentation, it would be this. Chasing trends is the built environment's version of fast fashion. It's simply not sustainable on so many levels. Before I dive into this, I first want to say we absolutely love Pantone, their colors, and admittedly, this is a brilliant marketing ploy, and we're not here to judge this and say it's a bad thing. It's more about how we as designers must manage these type of influences. So I'm sure as many of you know, every year Pantone comes out with the color of the year. This year's color of the year was a duo. Ultimate Gray and Illuminating, a marriage of color conveying a message of strength and hopefulness that is both enduring and uplifting. But what happened to last year's color, Classic Blue? I mean, you could insert any pop culture quote noting that this was so last year. And what happens to all the spaces inspired solely based on this being the color of the year? The color of the year inevitably infiltrates much of the world around us: fashion, retail, home products, as well as furniture, finishes, and other products that designers specify. But are these crystal ball predictions contributing to the slow death of authentic interior design? This also happens with products. Take this beautifully designed crosshatch chair that was designed for Geiger and Herman Miller. We absolutely love this chair. It was an instant hit, and everyone couldn't wait to specify this on a project. And I mean everyone. But then this happens. It shows up in a million projects across the portfolio. It seemed like every project within a certain time frame has this beautiful chair acting as a timestamp. At one point, this timestamp was reclaimed wood. It was barn lights. Now it might possibly white oak. And because certain products are being overused, the next problem is they're being knocked off, taking away the value of the product. I think it was just last week I read an interesting article in Fast Company that the knockoff industry puts a $4 billion dent in the luxury furniture business each year. As designers, it's our responsibility to educate and inform about the quality of products, using contract grade pieces in the correct application, and the importance of BIFMA ratings and the like. Like many of our colleagues, we read these trend pieces, we follow the social media accounts, even the ones we hate, and we do it to stay informed, but we don't have to blindly agree with them. A coworker put it well with saying, this feeling is compounded when one of our designers picks something like millennial pink as the feature color of this space. We need to stop right there. what does this color tie back to? How does it support the program, the spatial context, the design story? If this answer is simply because it looks cool, then that's the wrong answer. If it's because it's a space for a cosmetic company and millennial pink directly ties to, their beauty products or something, then bravo for embedding something meaningful. This is just one example of how we can be mindful and filter the outside influence. And it really all ties back to this. What's the big idea and how do you achieve authentic design?
Well, Mike, we filter it through what we have defined as 6 pillars of design. So technology and the internet have enabled the democratization of design. Everyone has easy access to examples of wonderful interior spaces. Without applying more rigor to the process, a design can only be rendered superficially. At the foundation of authentic design are 6 pillars that together enhance people's experience of space. We use these pillars as filters to shape 3-dimensional solutions. None stand alone, they're all interrelated and intersect to form interior architecture. So I'm going to take you through these at a high level. And this is really something that we all came up with in terms of themes or pillars that we try to see in every project we design. So the first step is scale and proportion. And scale and proportion allow for the right balance or deliberate imbalance between program elements and begin to establish the journey, cadence, layering, and importance of different environments that promote discovery and create impact and make destinations. Next up is shape and form. Shape and form give meaning to an environment. In this example for an aerospace firm, the shape and form of the desk and framing at the exterior curtain wall is evocative of aviation, and the cloud-like forms above symbolize atmosphere, flight, and promote movement. These shapes and forms support the mission of the organization and correlate to their brand. Shape and form help to make the space unique. What's the next one? Flow. Flow supports movement. As designers, we create cues, direct and indirect, to support users making decisions about how to navigate moving horizontally or vertically. Those cues can provide moments of rest to take in a vista, see what's next in one's journey. Our goal should be to provide an opportunity for users to experience the space in multiple ways, so that over time the space can feel familiar, but might also surprise and delight its occupants. Contrast. Contrast provides variations by juxtaposing different colors, materials, textures, and light levels. Contrast brings focus to hierarchy, function, wayfinding, and beauty. It enhances shapes and styles to create visually interesting, memorable spaces that elicit authentic reactions from users. Texture. Texture can express a brand, inspire people, and inform their emotions. Soft, smooth, rough, hard. Just some examples of texture in materials and can be demonstrated through choices in furnishings. In a world that is increasingly focused on both sustainable design and the need of a growing neurodivergent population, texture is a key ingredient. Color, or the lack thereof it. As designers, we often find ourselves thinking about color early in a process. Yet, the color selection is more iterative because it's so impactful. It begins to emerge as we define elements like scale, proportion, shape, and form. As one of the most dynamic pillars, the role of color becomes prominent only after the 3-dimensional design begins to take form. So what does this all mean? Why are these 6 pillars that I just outlined important? In one word, Pinterest. It's a great tool we all use to curate ideas, imagery, and interests. This virtual mood board can be a way to establish a design vocabulary with the client. We all have learned that the words used to describe space have different meaning to different people, and imagery can cut through that. But how do we know it's the right imagery to support the goals of a project? Pinterest, mood boards, Instagram, they're all tools meant to enhance client engagement and collaboration. They should not be confused with speed dating, an image or a style. Instead, it is an exercise in courtship and union toward a long-term meaningful experience. We can't let the tail wag the dog by allowing aesthetic preferences to shape a design. It's the job of a designer to decipher how these predilections can improve the outcome. The big idea, filtered through each design pillar, needs to anchor our early design decisions. Only after we go through this process, not even during early planning or visioning sessions, should we employ mood boards. My favorite outcome from a mood board session is when a client says something like this: I love those beige and white spaces. I'm not asking you to make my project look like that, but the level of brightness is right for our environment. When we hear something like that, then we can begin to design a space that fits their needs and aspiration, not just what they might like as an image. So I've seen designers get frustrated with the client who did not agree with the team's carefully selected material color palette. Instead of engaging them in a discussion, the designer agrees simply to just move on and do something else. That doesn't work. We risk the quality of the work we are creating and end up shopping a solution. Do you like this one or that one or this other one until something sticks? This is a waste of time. And more importantly, you risk losing the client's confidence. Go down that rabbit hole. Ask your client to talk about the very thing they hate, even if it's putting your ideas at risk. My favorite client would tell us, quote, "You might need to kill your darlings." As you probe your client's likes and dislikes, unpack what they're saying until you understand it. Then you can rebuild the idea with the client alongside as a creative partner. At the other end of this journey is an opportunity to reinforce the power of your design story. And all of this really culminates in this idea of authenticity from rigor. That's a mouthful today. Many clients have never gone through the process of planning, designing, and building a space. As our partners and co-creators in this endeavor, their input is vital to creating a truly authentic space that meets their people's needs, engages their senses, taps into their emotions. This is designing for an experience. When we're walking the space with the client on move-in day, we want them to experience a visceral understanding of how everything they encounter relates to the big idea we developed together. We want the aesthetics to make them feel a powerful sense of place. We owe it to our colleagues and our clients to do our best to avoid the paint by numbers uniformity comes from chasing trends and to demand a more rigorous approach to the design process. Hey, Mike, you want to take over?
Yep. The next section we're going to talk about is influencers. And Tom, next slide. And how designing under the influence happens, and hypothesizing that thoughtfully designed spaces avoid outside influence. Now, there are many positive outcomes as the rise of the influencers. A variety of TV shows, websites, streaming services, and social media channels like Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, blah, blah, blah. They all provide new platforms that have propelled the rise of the influencer culture. And we can appreciate people like Marie Kondo, the Gaines, celebrities like Lenny Kravitz that have been able to shine in long overdue light on the value of design. This rising tide of interest in quality design at every scale has propelled it to the mainstream while elevating our own work. This democratization of design has also engaged our clients, who now bring stronger opinions and more perceptive insights to projects. But what's the difference between a tastemaker and a designer? Or how about a complete gut renovation of a home in 3 days? Home renovation shows like Fixer Upper often conflate interior decoration and design. They can give our clients unrealistic expectations for a project's process or schedule. There's no doubt that decorative elements like furniture or finishes can spark moments of joy. A space should have its own personality and style. Yet, the aesthetics of a space should emerge from an exacting process that finds inspiration in sources more meaningful than an Instagrammable moment. For a space to truly succeed, it must look great while contributing to the client's deeper goals. whether it be employee interaction, branding, innovation, productivity, health, and well-being. In the end, the DNA of the most thoughtfully designed spaces often contains strains of more disruption than influence. They're the product of designers' expertise and creative inspiration. In this time of coronavirus fueled change, design firms like HOK and our peers are poised to become even stronger influencers. Our experience and ability to use evidence-based design to enhance the health and well-being within brand standards and aesthetic goals can't be mimicked by online influencers who aren't professional designers. Just because someone can curate a cool snapshot or a trending space element, such as a dash millennial pink here, haphazard collection of succulents there, that does not make them designers. And though follower counts may cause some influencers to be perceived as authorities, that's not enough. We need to carefully filter those who we follow, the thousands of design influencers who we follow, as they may subconsciously goop up our own creativity. We should focus our attention to the experts in the industry. We all benefit from exchanging ideas with our followers, even more so during this time of disruption. As we learn how to operate in the design influencer space, going forward as designers, we need to intensify our efforts to develop tailored solutions that more strongly integrate health and safety. Everything, including the influencer market, is up for renewal and reinvention. All right, take it away, Tom.
Thanks, Mike. So the next section we want to talk with you all about, we called stylization. And stylization, really we want to clarify what is believed to be the most misunderstood term in interior design. And stylization is something that's really important. And frankly, it's something we really don't get paid enough to do, and we should. So for us, stylization means something about returning a sense of joy to interior design. All right, here we go, Mike. We're going to try to make this happen.
I believe in you.
Is it working? And here we go. So stylization is the inclusion of artwork, plants, objects, textures, and other design elements that bring space to life. Through stylization is a crucial component of design. In recent history, it has often been written off as frivolous and unnecessary, the type of decoration anyone with a modicum of style in a nearby home store might master. I can't count how many times a client sent their assistant to Crate and Barrel to buy pillows or a vase. Is that really the case? Is stylization merely an ornamental design frivolity that requires little discernment or expertise? What the video is showing you is if you were born after 1920, you'd be forgiven for answering yes. The two design movements that have most influenced the past century, modernism and minimalism, each held a dismissive view towards stylization. During the same period, and particularly in the last 30 years, rapid advancements in technology have introduced billions of people to mass market versions of stylization found on Pinterest, HGTV, and the like. Countless other design media outlets. Little wonder that today's stylization is often associated with fast fashion consumer culture. In today's increasingly divided, okay, how do I do this now? Right. Here. Oh, I did it, didn't I? Yes. You know, in today's world, stylization matters because for a few things. One is personalization and customization. How can a design allow users to tailor a space depending on their preferences or their needs? When considering corporate design, how does stylization offer employees choices while adhering to brand and company standards? Human connections and sentimental value. Stylization adds warmth and a depth to space in ways that transcend architecture. Art, natural elements, objects, and artifacts can inspire a sense of wonderment and awe that draw people together, or conversely, trigger emotions that cause us to turn inward and reflect. And then also it's about the curation of spaces. Stylization is about experience. Curated spaces go a long way toward reinforcing an idea or a story. For companies, stylization can build both authenticity and brand awareness, connecting internal and external audiences to a common concept or mission. I just want to end on stylization, just showing an image from a project both Mike and I really admire, one of our colleagues worked on. You know, this is an example of stylization coming together. Art shelves display rotating art along with client imagery. Objects on the coffee table and the shelves start to create texture, add scale and dimension. That color, a pop of yellow in the high back chair, draws your eye into the depth of space. And the move would be lost if it was not for the fact that that yellow chair is complemented by some throw pillows in the same tone and volume. So the reason that stylization matters is it's this extra level of layer that needs to come into the space to really encapsulate the entire feeling and emotion we're trying to drive through the design of an environment.
All right. The next section we want to dive into is globalization. Globalization has made the world a more connected place where ideas and inspiration are shared and accessible. But that doesn't mean everything should look the same. At its best, it brings us together to address worldwide challenges like the fight to rid the world of COVID-19. At its worst, globalization ushers in all sorts of its own problems, such as exploitation, inequality, and even war. The issue is one we all participate in, whether we realize it or not. We're talking about the commodification of thought and the dilution of creativity that comes to us courtesy of globalization and the internet age. Today, 4.57 billion people, that's 59% of the world's population, are online. And although the internet promised to make us smarter by introducing us to new ideas and concepts across the globe, it's easy to make the opposite argument. The internet has turned us into thumb-swiping followers who are less ambitious, less curious, and less willing to question. That's particularly true in design, where the ideas of what a building should look like get posted online for the world to see, like, and mimic. Take, for example, the global idea of a tech company workplace. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine what this office would look like. If you spent any time on Instagram, LinkedIn, Office Snapshots, or Pinterest, you're probably envisioning the same thing. It's the open plan workplace accented with splashes of bright colors, sunlit common area with the espresso machine and a lounge, the rec room with the beer fridge, the foosball table, concrete floors, exposed ceiling, blah, blah, blah. The tech place formula goes on and on. Now think for a second, how is that each of us, even those that have never stepped foot in a tech office, basically see the same thing? The answer is globalization. And with it, turning away from the individual and regional influences that make a design exciting, personal, and meaningful. This builds the case and need for regional nuance. Today, the aesthetics of many workplace interiors are influenced by benchmarking trends impulsively shared and applied globally. In following this approach, designers reapply the predictable on a global scale, creating uninspired workplace designs that draw from a composite of industry norms and say little about the people, the culture, or define the place. In the past, this approach made some sense. Workplace design standards that mandate a defined look and feel across an entire portfolio offer an easy and inexpensive solution. But what these standards often lack, however, is nuance, regional relevancy, and one might argue empathy and imagination. The photo on the screen shows a good example of showcasing regional nuance. Same client, same space type and function, but completely different aesthetics. The image on the left is from a Midwest office where the client wanted to reflect the region, bringing in handmade fixtures and furniture with industrial farm-like vibe, while the image on the right is an office located in Irvine, California, reflecting a more buttoned-up tailor approach to the space. As designers, it's our job to understand how global and regional aesthetics influence people's interaction with space and balance the two. We need to be mindful of global branding, benchmarking, and best practices, while still recognizing the importance of local and regional customs. Whether we're designing for a company with existing international presence or one that may not even have global ambitions, we must ask ourselves and our clients, what are the needs for the user? How can we create a solution that makes the most sense for their individuals, culture, and region?
Good job, Mike. So next up, we're going to speak a little bit about experience. And something we wanted to talk about, it was in terms of memories in the making. So what is the anatomy of an authentic experience? In today's digital age and influencer-driven culture, we often make major decisions about the experiences we seek out based on the opinions of others. From the moment we're born, these sensory experiences play an important role in our development. While genetics determine how our brains are wired, our experiences influence how they develop. Experiences, big and small, shape who we are. But what is the anatomy of a memorable experience? Do positive and negative experiences have any common elements? As designers, what can we learn from studying people's most memorable moments to help us create spaces that are truly unforgettable? So, how did we do that? We surveyed people. By better understanding the specific attributes of memorable experiences, we can design spaces that enhance the sensory experience of the people who use them. To help our teams do this, we conducted an online survey that gathered quantitative and qualitative data from nearly 500 participants. The survey asked respondents to define the attributes of positive and negative experiences, to identify the senses influencing their perception of these experiences, and to share their defining memories. So what's next? The survey findings help us understand how to design a well-executed experience. We speculate that proper communication with employees will give people confidence upon returning to the office to enjoy deep, rich experiences rather than focusing on basic functional needs, as many have in the face of COVID-19. As designers, our highest calling is to objectively assess the needs of each client and then design choreographed spaces that respond to those unique needs. We can only achieve a well-executed experience when we are tuned into the end user, but we can only create a truly memorable environment when our data-driven designs are inspired by real people and their stories.
All
Take it
right.
away.
The last section we want to talk about is personalization. And what does personalization mean? Specifically, what does personalization mean going forward in a COVID world? Research has shown that employees have an enhanced sense of belonging when the design of the space aligns with their self-image. But as people start to head back into the office, cleanability is going to be top of mind. The days of stuffed animals, pictures of your celeb crush, figurine collections are most likely behind us. Many companies are shifting towards unassigned seats and clean desk policies. But how do you do this and still allow for the office to reflect an individual's identity? This can be through moments of curated personalization, whether it's collages on the wall, personal figurines displayed as art to make up a company's logo. There are still plenty of ways to engage employees and allow the individual identity to be reflected within the office while still avoiding that sterile atmosphere that lacks personalization. All right, well, thank you for listening to Tom and I rant for the past 40-ish minutes. I think we can just open it up to questions. Do you want to stop sharing, Tom, so they can see your pretty face?
Yes, I have to figure out how to do that. Oh, wait, I didn't have to do it. Amelia did it. Hi.
Right.
Oh, it's the first time I'm seeing you, Mike. Hi.
I'm sorry. All right. Is there any questions? Yes, the recording will be available after. I think, Lisa, if you want to chime in and share how to get that. Since COVID-19, do you see influencers missing in action in the topic of wellness, especially physical versus digital experiences? Tom, do you want to dive in on that one?
Sure. I have to say, in looking at the influencers that maybe I follow, I have not seen a whole lot of conversation or anyone really addressing the impact COVID has had on the built environment. I would say for like-minded professionals like Mike and I at HOK and firms similar to us, yes, we've all been publishing and putting some thoughts out there around what we think the future of the workplace is going to be once we all return to office. So I've seen it that way, but I haven't necessarily seen it in terms of influencers.
Yeah,
right?
I would agree. I would say the influencers version of, wellness is sort of superficial. It's, taking care of yourself, the masks, but there's, a whole spectrum of other things that need to be taken into consideration with wellness. We have a lot of thought leadership on the neurodiversity and how that is affecting people, and, returning to office and how to create, spaces that are welcoming for everybody across the spectrum, with the anxiety of returning to work. And, the influencers you're talking about, like, comfy sweaters and, weighted blankets, but that's a very superficial answer. And I think it just highlights the point that, yeah, it's fine to follow influencers in terms of curated, thoughts and pretty pictures, but there's a lot more beneath the surface that needs to be taken into consideration.
Good. So Janet asked, how do you push back on a client that brings pictures from Instagram and Pinterest that are overused and trendy? Great question, Janet. That's the whole point of this presentation. We're with you. It's good for a thought starter. It's great to see that a client has put some thought into some ideas. And like I had said earlier, it's really focused on digging into what matters around those images that a client might pick up on, and for us to decipher the real value in what that imagery portrays. So, I always say this when we start a visioning process with a client, that when I say modern design, what I mean by something that I interpret as modern is very different from everybody else around that table. And then everyone else has a different opinion, right? So imagery is nice because it kind of cuts through that, but we have to dig deeper into why that image might have real meaning to a client or to an organization.
Right. Anonymous asked, how do you teach your younger employees how to step away from Pinterest and develop design concepts?
We take away their iPhones.
Oh gosh. I think it's circling back to, like, early in the presentation with that millennial pink chasing trend slide. It's, if you start to ask people about, why they're picking certain finishes and stuff like that, and you can question it. And then if there's not a reason behind it, I think people start to understand, like, oh, there is more to it. Why am I picking this paint color? Is it because, the client comes from a beach town and they want to resemble that? Or is it just because it's the color of the year? It's really questioning it, and it doesn't have to be done in a negative way. And believe me, I've, fallen trap to many of times where I want to use something because it's cool, it's new, and I want to be the first to use it. But if you, reach out to peers or just question it, and you really try and unpack why you like it, and if it's simply because I think it looks good, then you realize that there's not anything behind that, and it's going to quickly date, and it's not going to be, something that's going to live in the space and hold up its meaning for a long period of time, at least in my opinion.
Good job. We did that one. What's another one? I love Sarah's comment. She just completed her bachelor in interior design, and so many students use social media first, especially first and second years, which the professors found really frustrating. So your ideas on globalization were really interesting to me, having just experienced that. Well, thank you. And hey, it's all about learning. And that is great to recognize that in your education, you were seeing this, right? So good. Hopefully it sounds like you've learned something from that experience. And as you delve into your professional career, you have to take all of this information and weight it and figure out really what matters to you as a designer. And then when you're starting to really engage with your client, understand what this imagery and what some of this information really means to them.
Oh my gosh, so many questions.
I know, I'm so excited.
All right, this one is from Pam. I would ask you both, how arrange the design become different if one client wants to be the same, mimic in interiors, because an interior space needs identity, isn't it?
So the way I would interpret Pam's question here is, yeah, there's a lot of times where somebody's going to walk in the room and hand you a set of pictures and say, I want it to look just like this. I think it's our jobs as a designer to question that information. We need to get to the root of it. It goes back to the idea of going down that rabbit hole. I need to understand why, if you're telling me, the design needs to be evocative of, the latest in technology and the latest in thinking around people coming together and collaborating, and then you show me a picture of the set of the Friends, from the TV show Friends, the coffee house, and you want that in the space. It's our job to say, hey, I hear you and I understand what you're asking for. What is it that you're trying to achieve when you show me this picture? Is it the fact that this is informal? Is it the fact that this is a place that brings people together? Is it about a certain level of intimacy that you see in the environment? We need to get to the core of what is being asked of us when somebody drops a picture in front of us, so that we can actually design a bespoke solution that really has meaning to the client, and it's just not a copy of something they've seen. Oh, look, it's Kay Sargent. Mike, Kay is asking us a question. Why? We work with her. We talk to her multiple times a day.
All right, Kay asks, how can we get more educated, licensed interior design position to be influencers for the general public so they get good information? I will say it's exactly what we're doing now. It's using platforms like this, educating ourselves, and inspiring each other within the industry and sharing those ideas. Just because you work at a different company does not mean, everything doesn't have to be a rival. It's, lifting up the other thought leaders and actual design influences and sharing those thoughts and getting that out more so than the, the pretty pictures that you can quickly scroll through.
Thanks, Kay. Oh, look, it's Mackenzie McCullough. We know Mackenzie.
Can we ignore this one? No,
yeah, we could ignore. Let's not ignore Mackenzie. Do you think that there are any positive attributes that come from influencer culture? Access to information, sharing of dialogue, etc. Yeah, Mackenzie, absolutely. I mean, it has been incredibly important that we have this, because we have seen this rise and elevation of design and design thinking. I mean, I'm a little bit older than you. Back in the day, it was a big deal when Michael Graves created this, accessible, cost-effective home goods, home products for Target. That was a watershed moment, because it took design at the level of Michael Graves and made it accessible to everybody. And people really wanted it, and it started to drive something. So I think it's great. It's now really about, how do we take all this information and use it for good? How was that, Mike?
That was good, I approve. All right, Andrea, so good to see you on here.
Oh my God, Andrea.
Just curious, do you find junior interior designers are more quick to use social media sites as inspiration? If so, are there strategies that you use through mentorship to help guide newer designers to avoid being influenced? For example, my students, I have a no Pinterest rule. I personally think it can go both ways. Kind of as Tom has mentioned before, visuals help convey sometimes better than words, but I think they can't be solely used as an answer. It's more so the feeling of a space or the function of a space can be through a visual, but how do you actually interpret it to fit the needs of whatever project you're designing for? It's really trying to avoid the copy, paste, rotate scenario that most likely is the outcome of these Pinterest boards, where you walk through an office and it's designed in little Instagram moments where it was like, this little thing is here, this little thing is here, this little thing is here, but none of them relate. And you have to think of it more holistically, less of mini snapshots. So many questions.
I wanted to do Carmen. I'm in love with what Carmen is writing and asking. What are your collective thoughts on the protection of the term interior designer for professionals only? Hallelujah. Absolutely. I firmly believe in this. I believe that all of us that practice interior design should have gone through a higher education program, have done their internships, went out and got a license. And that's one of the biggest, most important things I believe we do so well at HOK is we foster the ability for all of our talent to go and get their professional license. We support the studying, we pay for the exam. I want to say we might even pay for the exam twice. We give you one chance to fail it. But I firmly believe that interior design is a profession and should be recognized as such. And if you're not a recognized licensed interior designer, there should be a different term for what you do for a living. I'm sorry, I was on my soapbox for a minute. I'm done.
Anonymous attendee, yes, this is a real background. I'm visiting family in this very ridiculous place. It belongs to my uncles. All right.
Peter's on, did you see?
I did, Peter. Hi, Peter.
Hi, Peter. Thanks, Peter.
And suggest that we may finally be seeing the end of the ridiculous visioning exercise as we know it. I agree. I think visioning needs to be reinterpreted to still a tool where you can get on the same page with clients. But I do think that some of the visioning exercises that were used pre-Pinterest become the issue of the copy paste. And visioning, I think, is different per client. It's per their knowledge of design. It's per the company type or project type, market sector. But I think the whole goal of visioning is to get get that Rosetta Stone of when you say, I like open, this means open to you. When you say, I like this means that. So I think visioning is very important. And I think we do, need to come up with ways to do a visioning exercise. Yeah.
We need a better tool. I think Peter is right because it's just shopping.
Yeah, no more shopping.
Oh, Kay wants to know when we're starting our own show. I firmly believe there should be a show about real interior design on HGTV, be it office, be it airport, be it hospital. That's where I think we'd have a watershed moment where the public would start seeing things way beyond shiplap and modern farmhouse.
And you can't build an office in 3 days for
you can't get a project done in 5 minutes. Yeah, exactly. For $1. Exactly.
Natasha says, what role do you think adaptive reuse of existing office spaces will be as companies or workers choose to permanently switch to working from home? What do you foresee these spaces being used for? I personally don't think the office spaces are going to be going away. I think the way office spaces are functioning are going to be shifting. I think the need for an office is still very much needed, and because I would say the need for the office of the future is very much needed because everybody needs to go to a place and work that's best suited for them. And some people enjoy working at home because it's quiet, but some people don't have quiet at home and you need a place to escape. And the vice versa is some people need to collaborate, and collaborating via Zoom is not the answer. So I don't really foresee office spaces going.
I agree. I think, Mike, you're right. Things are going to change. I think the office becomes an environment to collaborate, to meet, to mentor, to meet with clients. It's a place to celebrate the brand and the culture and bringing the organization together. Those were things that the office always did anyway. I think that's what's going to get amped up. I think we're going to end up getting to a point now that we are at a higher level of design and understanding to the office environment. It's not just going to be, oh, it's benching everywhere. It's going to be, I think, a very different quality of space that will be more unique and more bespoke.
All right, let's go to Melissa. What resources do you recommend to use with clients or even internal to use as idea starters that are not just the trendy open office tech pins? You know, I think the way each person approaches design is going to be different. I don't think there necessarily is a correct answer to this, but me personally, I think it's about researching the company, researching their brand values. Like, say they make products, what is the language in the products they use? How can that be adapted into architecture? I think you need to do the research before you dive into how that is visualized and interpreted. So you can avoid the trendy things.
You know, and we also start from I think a data point of view. We were talking about that around experiences, but you know, there's a program, there's a building. We have to start assembling things. We're going to make some big decisions when we start to plan, and those decisions should be based on our understanding of the organization. I mean, if it's very hierarchical, you're going to create one kind of planning methodology versus one that is much more of a equal playing field in terms of an organization. You're going to create something different. So I think part of it is going to be based on what do we know about the company? What do we know about their program? How do we start arranging space? And then start thinking through what that means three-dimensionally. All right, what else?
All right. All right, this one says, with the educated Pinterest designer, how do you have a conversation about finishes and design without customers feeling like they're not being heard? I mean, at the end of the day, they're hiring designers because they need our guidance, and how much of our guidance they need, that's not always clear. But it's kind of going back to going down the rabbit hole when it's unpacking their asks, understanding the true meaning of why they want this image. Is it because they like the colors? Because they like the texture? Is it because they liked it, if the openness, the closeness? I think it's really, you got to have a dialogue, and it can't be, and the dialogue isn't going to happen in a 30-minute, quick session. It's about building a relationship with the client and understanding them and getting them to give you a level of trust and kind of working together with them to really understand what they want.
And I think it's okay to say no. We should say no to a client. We're the professionals. This is not a personal pet for most clients. It is not a personal pet project. This is about a larger organization that has characteristics and brand that we're trying to design to. And a lot of times I will say to a client, this is not about your favorite colors today. We're not doing your living room. We're designing a corporate office space. And we're looking at these different aspects to help influence our solution. And it's usually the brand, the brand guidelines, what the company stands for, some of the issues that they're bringing to bear that they want us to emphasize. So for me, it's about, yeah, I know you like that beige sofa, but we're not doing beige. And we talked about that. Sorry. All right, what else?
All right, Pinterest does not equal evidence. How do you define the process, or what is involved in an evidence-based design process in your practice? Do you want to take this one, Tom, or?
Sure, I mean, evidence-based design is interesting. It's there's a lot of focus on it, especially within our healthcare interiors. I also think evidence-based design sometimes is questionable, in terms of what is the quality of that information truly meaning, and how does that really apply to a solution, and how does it apply to a solution over time? And so I think it's important for us to understand that we have to design a solution that has a bit of flexibility, has the ability to have some longevity, and some of those attributes from evidence-based design might not necessarily translate over, a 10 or 15-year lease. So I think it's an important question. I love the fact that you brought it up. And I know that our design teams, especially focusing on healthcare, put some emphasis on that. Oh, we've got a 5-minute warning. Okay. Let's do a couple more questions.
Let's see. Oh, we just answered that one. Sorry. All right. Madison asks, when working with companies that have set standards and their finishes of products, as a designer, is it appropriate to recommend adding individually to the project? Also, how do you stay creative in these types of projects? I mean, again, as designers, I think it is our role and should be our responsibility to guide them and recommend things that add individuality to a project. Obviously, per client, that's going to, be interpreted in different ways. I get like retail banking. Yeah, you're going to want the front of house to always look the same, but can the graphics change? Can you source from, local vendors that maybe do local artwork or local furniture? Like, how do you bring these little moments of locale? And those are the little moments that make the people that work there, as well as the people that visit there, kind of, feel a sense of belonging to that place. So I think it's definitely important to do that.
And Mike, I think it's making a brilliant point here. And what's interesting is, even using your example of retail banking, for JP Morgan Chase, we did a series of bank branches that were very bespoke and unique because they really wanted them to be anchors in the communities they were being built. And that works in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. It might not work up in, Fairfield, Connecticut. It might be a different solution. But I like the idea that, for every project type, how do you bring that individuality and personalization into the space? And the notion of using locally made, locally sourced objects, furnishings, artwork is a real strong way to do that.
All right.
Hi, Teresa. So happy to hear from you.
I think this will be our last one from Anonymous. What do you think is in store for the future design in terms of social media influence? Where do we go from here? The influence is so persuasive, and my clients are younger and younger every day. I think it's about sharing more than just the pretty pictures. I think we have to be transparent about the process, the amount of effort that goes into a project. So much it's just, some people will share the one little snapshot of the construction site with the hard hat because you think you look cute in the vest and, the finished product. But I think we need to showcase so much more of the steps and the hurdles and the mess behind it to, share what's really going into a project, not just the final result, because that debunks the myth that, this was conceived overnight and voila.
I like that, Mike. And I also think we need to couple those moments, be it the beautiful final photography or the mess it took to get to that photography, with some thought leadership and real ideas and information that goes beyond a glossy image. And so, for us at HOK, we're focused on thought leadership. We're writing things and putting information out in the world through Instagram, through LinkedIn, through other sources to share thinking and ideas around client types and around issues. And I think if we all did more of that, I think that would change the dynamic when it comes to social media influence.
Because I think if we don't, that glossy image is just going to end up on the shopping list when somebody scrolls through Pinterest, and you're just kind of perpetuating the cycle, right? Like, there's always more behind an image. And I think we need to start sharing that and really, how did we get there?
That was great, Mike. I think we kind of did our job. Hi, Lisa.
That was fantastic, guys. Thank you so much for a very thoughtful and a very fun presentation. And, I don't usually watch HGTV, but I would absolutely watch your show on HGTV. And I saw a lot of comments from people that bring it on.
Mike and I can do it. We're good. We're good on camera.
Great.
That would be terrible.
So yes, we did record this session. It will be available on the NeoCon website by the end of the week. Our friends at Work Design Magazine will be interviewing Mike and Tom for a follow-up piece that will be out in the next couple of weeks, and we'll make sure that everybody who participated today gets a copy of that via email. We have 3 more sessions running as part of our May programming series. One this afternoon with the lab at Rockwell Group. That's at 3 o'clock Central. So we hope that you guys can join us for that. And then we have 2 tomorrow. Again, wonderful presentation, a lot of good information and a lot of fun. And thank you everybody for joining us today.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.